So today I'd like to introduce to you a concept I've been thinking about called the geoscheme. Now, what is a geoscheme? We're used to thinking about nations, or the idea of the nation state, as an imagined community, as not just a unit of land on the map, but as something which has an idea behind it, a historical narrative behind it, that is actually a very ideological quantity, as well as being a geographical unit. So that's for the nation. But what about larger geographical units? Trans-regional units, regions, continents, larger sections of the world. We don't really have a good term to talk about those kinds of spaces. I think it's important that we conceptualize ideas about supranational regions. Same way we talk about nations. In particular, at this time of globalization, we need a vocabulary for talking about larger units of space and the ideology and ideas behind them. One good example of a geoscheme, which I like to talk about, is the Silk Road. Now, we think about the Silk Road as an old route between the East and the West. But in fact, if you look closely at how it's talked about, it's much more about the community of Eurasia and how it was knit together by trade, by cultural exchange. And so the idea of the Silk Road also has a lot of concepts behind it. It has a lot of emotion and has a lot of ideology behind it. It's saying that in the past, people of Eurasia traded together and worked together. There's also a sense that Silk Road communications led to peaceful relations between countries. There's a way in which we talk about the Silk Road which is in contrast to other notions, such as the Great Game. So the Silk Road is an antidote, or the flip side of the idea of clashing civilizations. Now, there are other kinds of units that are also geoschemes in this sense. I would argue that the notion of Europe and Asia itself as continents are really geoschematic. They are geoscheme. The notion of Europe and Asia as concepts are also geoschematic. There is no real geographical division between Europe and Asia. And yet we talk about them as distinct units with distinct histories, with distinct characters as well. Another example of this kind of unit that I've been thinking a lot about is the Chinese proposal of the Belt and Road Initiative. Because they're not only proposing to build infrastructure across Eurasia, but they're also making an argument that there is a natural, cultural, and political unit of Asia that they can link through these infrastructural projects. And there's also a subtle critique there of European involvement in this part of the world and an effort to try to exclude the United States and the West more broadly from the Eurasian zone. And so when China talks about the Belt and Road community, they're not only talking about places linked by trains and roads and ships, but they're also making an implicit historical argument and an ideological argument and even a geostrategic assertion with this notion of the Belt and Road. So that's why I talk about these kinds of units as geoschemes.